Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into something pretty fascinating. Grit.
Grit, yeah.
It's really challenging how we think about success, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Like, is it really just all about natural talent?
Yeah, exactly. And to help us explore this, we're diving into Angela Duckworth's book, Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance.
Oh, a classic. I love that book.
Yeah, it's a great one. We're actually using excerpts from a podcast episode that reviews the book. So get ready. It's going to be a good one.
It is. You know, it's amazing how much we focus on talent, right?
Right.
Like, we've almost created this talent myth.
The talent myth, yeah. So let's get right to it. What exactly is grit?
Well, Duckworth defines it as this combination of passion and perseverance.
Passion and perseverance, okay.
But not just for any goal. This is about long-term goals.
So it's not just a quick burst of energy.
No, it's not. It's that real, unwavering commitment, sticking with it even when things get tough.
So you're not just working hard. You're invested in the goal itself.
You got it. That deep commitment, that's got to resonate with you, even when those obstacles come up, which they always do.
They always do. But how does all of this impact us?
Well, it's not just about a specific achievement, right?
Yeah.
It's this mindset, a resilient mindset. It affects so many parts of our lives, careers, education, how we grow as people, even relationships.
It really changes our whole view of success, doesn't it?
It does.
It's not just about that initial talent, it's how you nurture it, how you stay committed.
Keep the fire burning, yeah.
Keep the fire burning even when you hit roadblocks.
Yeah, and Duckworth's research shows this, right? That grit plays this huge role in our well-being and, of course, our success.
So it's a powerful force. Now, I know Duckworth has a really interesting background. She started as a teacher, right?
She did.
And that experience actually led her to this whole idea of grit.
It really did.
Well,
She saw firsthand that the most successful students, they weren't always the ones with, like, the top IQs.
really?
Yeah. Even some of her most brilliant students, they didn't achieve that much later in life.
Oh,
And that made her curious. So she went into psychology to really understand what makes people successful.
so she saw that gap between potential, right,
Yeah,
and achievement.
exactly. She wanted to know what was missing.
What was missing, yeah.
So to figure it out, she studied all kinds of people. West Point cadets,
Wow.
salespeople, National Spelling Bee contestants.
Yeah, that is such a diverse group of people. What could they possibly have in common?
Well, that's the amazing thing. Despite all their differences, she found that grit was a much better predictor of success than anything else, even talent or IQ.
Wow, so even in those high-achieving groups, it wasn't raw talent that made the difference.
Nope, it was grit. It totally changes how we think about success. And you know what? Duckworth even created this grit scale.
A grit scale.
Yeah, it's a tool to measure someone's level of passion and perseverance. It's been super influential for individuals, schools, businesses, you name it.
So you can actually measure your grit level.
You can. It's pretty cool. And it can help you figure out how to improve, too.
That's awesome. And it really goes back to challenging that talent myth we were talking about.
Totally. Duckworth argues that talent might give you a head start, but it's that sustained effort over time that really matters.
Effort over time, yeah.
In fact, she actually has this equation in her book. Talent times effort equals skill.
Okay, talent times effort equals skill.
And then skill times effort equals achievement.
Wait, so effort is in there twice?
It is. Because talent is like that initial spark, but effort, that's the fuel that keeps the fire going.
So you're saying that effort is like the key ingredient.
It really is. It's about showing up, putting in the work, day after day, year after year.
That is incredibly inspiring, especially for those of us who, maybe weren't born prodigies.
Right.
It means we all have that potential. Right?
Absolutely.
If we have grit and really put in the effort.
It's such an empowering message.
It is. But how do we actually develop grit? Is it something you can learn? Can you get better at it?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
But luckily, Duckworth gives us a way to do it. She has this 4-part formula, a framework, to actually cultivate grit.
Okay, a 4-part formula. I like it. What's the first part?
The first part is cultivating interest.
The cultivating interest. Okay. So how do we find that passion that's really going to fuel our grit?
Well, it all starts with curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Tapping into those things that really, truly fascinate you.
Okay, curiosity.
Yeah, like think about what you loved doing as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, those activities that just made time fly by.
Oh, I see.
Like, were you building Lego masterpieces?
Oh, yeah, I loved Legos.
Or maybe you were lost in a world of books, or always trying to solve puzzles.
Always trying to figure things out, yeah.
Exactly. Those early interests, they often hold clues to our deeper passions.
It's like reconnecting with that inner child.
Yeah, but
Boy.
totally. That sense of wonder and excitement we had before, well, before life got so complicated.
Yeah, exactly. But what if you feel like you've lost touch with that?
Hmm, that's a good question. I think that's when it's time to experiment. Don't be afraid to try new things, even if they seem a little out there.
Okay, so get out of your comfort zone.
Exactly. Take a pottery class, join a hiking group, volunteer at an animal shelter. You just never know what might click.
You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more you explore, the more likely you are to find something that really, lights that fire.
Okay, so explore, experiment, be open to new things. But once you find something that interests you, how do you keep that passion alive?
You got to nurture it.
Mm-hmm.
Make time for it, even if it's just a few minutes each day. Consistency is key.
Consistency, okay.
And surround yourself with things that feed that passion.
Mm-hmm.
Books, podcasts, people who share your interests, create that supportive environment.
I love that idea. It's like creating an ecosystem for your passion to grow. And you mentioned people who share your interests, which makes me think about teams and organizations. We often hear about grit in those contexts, so it's not just an individual thing, right?
They're so right. Remember that Seattle Seahawks coach we talked about?
Yeah, the one who built his whole team around grit.
He totally did. He was all about effort and resilience, maybe even more than raw talent.
Okay, so how did that actually work? How did he bring those grit principles to life?
He had this belief that every player, no matter their position or skill level, had a vital role.
I like that. Everyone contributes.
Exactly. He emphasized showing up every day with a killer work ethic, being willing to push those limits, and, really importantly, supporting each other.
So it wasn't just about individual grit, it was about collective grit.
Yes. A shared sense of purpose and resilience,
Yeah.
facing challenges head-on as a team.
And they were successful, right?
Yeah, oh, incredibly successful.
I am.
Not because they were the most talented necessarily, but because they had this unwavering belief in themselves, in their collective power to overcome anything.
Wow, that's a really powerful example of how grit can work on a bigger scale, not just for individuals.
It is. And it shows how you can apply these grit principles in so many different areas. We tend to think of grit with, like, high achievers in sports or business.
Right, those super competitive fields.
Yeah, but it's just as relevant in everyday life.
Yeah.
Think about parenting, for example.
Oh, parenting, definitely a test of grit.
Right. So much patience, resilience, perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
It's practically a requirement.
You're telling me so much patience, so much resilience. But it's not just about getting through the tough moments, is it? It's about teaching your kids those same values.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're modeling resilience for them, showing them how to face challenges head on.
You're instilling that spirit of grit, that belief in their own ability to overcome obstacles and achieve their goals.
Precisely. You're empowering them to become those strong, determined individuals who are ready for anything.
Yeah, it's amazing how grit can have this ripple effect.
It really does. And yet it's not just about parenting either. Grit is huge in personal growth and development.
What do you mean? Like for self-improvement?
Exactly. Think about any personal goal you set, like learning a new language or running a marathon or even breaking a bad habit. Those things take a lot of grit to see them through.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's that inner drive to keep going, even when you have those moments of self-doubt, when you just want to give up.
You nailed it. It's that unwavering commitment to becoming the best version of yourself, no matter what setbacks or distractions come up. You got to keep showing up for yourself day after day, pushing towards those goals.
It's really making me rethink my own approach to personal goals. I'm starting to realize that maybe I've given up on some things too easily in the past. So how do you know how much grit you have? Is there a way to assess your own level of it?
That's a great question. And there are actually a few ways to get a sense of your own grit level. One way is to look back at your past experiences. Those times you faced really tough challenges or setbacks.
Okay, so like those make or break moments.
Yeah. Think about those situations and how you responded. Did you give up easily?
Yeah.
Did self-doubt creep in? Or did you find a way to persevere, to push through the discomfort and find a solution?
So it's about recognizing those patterns in how we deal with adversity.
Exactly. Our past actions can tell us a lot about our natural tendencies when it comes to grit. But it's not just about the past. It's about paying attention to our current habits, too.
So like what we're doing right now in our daily lives.
Exactly. Think about your routines, how you approach goals, how you handle setbacks. Do you set ambitious goals but struggle to follow through? Do you get discouraged easily when you don't see results right away? Or do you just keep working towards your goals even when progress is slow.
It's like taking an honest look in the mirror, right? Seeing where we might be falling short on the grit front.
Exactly. Our daily actions often reveal a lot about our level of grit. And if you want a more objective measure, there's always that grip scale we mentioned, the one Duckworth developed.
Oh, right. The questionnaire that measures your passion and perseverance. Is that something people can easily access?
Absolutely. You can find it online. There are even versions specifically for students or employees.
So if someone wants a more concrete measure, they can check that out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a great resource if you're serious about understanding and maybe boosting your grit. Now, you might be wondering, what if you take that grit scale, you reflect on your experiences, and you realize you're not as gritty as you want to be? What then?
That's a great question. Can you actually become grittier? Is that even possible if you don't start out with a lot of it?
That's the big question, isn't it? Can you actually become grittier?
Yeah, like, is it something you can change?
You absolutely can. And that's what's so great about it. Grit, it's not like set in stone. It's something you can develop, like a muscle you strengthen over time.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, remember that four-part formula we talked about. Cultivating interest, practicing deliberately, finding purpose, and fostering a growth mindset. Those are the keys.
Right, those four elements. So let's break those down. Starting with cultivating interest, how do we find something we're passionate about that will actually fuel our grit?
It's like we were saying before, think back to what you loved as a kid. I know it sounds simple, but it can be really powerful. Think about what you really enjoyed, those things you were drawn to naturally.
I see. So, like, were you always building things? Or maybe lost in stories?
Exactly. Or always trying to figure out how things worked. Those early interests, they can give you clues about where your passions might lie.
Okay, so tap into that inner child. But what if you feel like you've lost touch with that? Or maybe your childhood passions don't really fit with who you are now.
Well, then it's time to experiment. Try new things, even things that seem a little out of your comfort zone.
Mm.
Take a pottery class, join a hiking group, volunteer at an animal shelter, just try things out and see what happens.
So be open to new experiences.
Exactly. The more you explore, the more likely you are to find something that really sparks your interest, something that just clicks.
Okay, so explore and experiment. But once you find something that interests you, how do you keep that passion going? How do you nurture it?
Make time for it, even just a few minutes every day. Being consistent is really important.
Consistency, yeah.
And surround yourself with things that feed that passion. Books, podcasts, even just spending time with people who share those interests. It's all about creating an environment that supports you.
It's like you're building this little world where your passion can thrive.
Yeah, you need that kind of support to really make it grow.
Speaking of support, I'm remembering how that Seattle Seahawks coach built a whole team culture around grit.
Oh, yeah. He really created something special there. It shows how grit can be contagious. He fostered an environment where everyone valued effort and resilience.
And everyone knew they had an important role to play.
Exactly. So think about that in your own life. Surround yourself with people who inspire you, who believe in you, who challenge you to grow. Those relationships make a huge difference.
So build a support system that encourages grit.
Exactly. It makes a world of difference.
Okay, let's move on to the second element of Duckworth's formula. Practicing deliberately. What does that actually look like?
It's all about being focused and intentional. Not just going through the motions, but really pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone. Figure out what you need to improve and get feedback so you can refine your skills.
So it's about being strategic with your practice.
Exactly. Set clear, specific goals for every practice session. Don't just say, I'm going to practice guitar for an hour. Pick a specific song or technique you want to master.
And break it down into smaller steps.
Exactly. That way you can track your progress and stay motivated.
I like that. It makes it feel less overwhelming.
And don't be afraid to ask for feedback from someone you trust, like a mentor or a coach, someone who can give you constructive criticism and help you see what you might be missing.
Feedback is so important.
It really is. And remember, deliberate practice isn't about being perfect. It's about embracing the challenge, pushing through those uncomfortable moments, and learning from your mistakes.
Yeah, mistakes are just part of the process. They help us grow.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to finding purpose. How do we connect our work to something bigger than ourselves?
Finding purpose is all about aligning your efforts with something that really matters to you, something that goes beyond just personal gain.
Okay, so tapping into your values.
Exactly. It's about asking those big questions.
Yeah.
What are you most passionate about? What problems in the world do you want to solve? What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
Those are some deep questions.
They are. but they can lead to some really profound insights. Once you have a sense of your purpose, look for ways to put it into action. Volunteer your time,
Right.
donate to a cause, mentor someone starting out in your field.
So find ways to make a tangible difference.
Exactly. Even small actions can have a big impact.
All right, and finally, let's talk about fostering a growth mindset. This one seems really important when it comes to grit.
It's essential. A growth mindset is that belief that you can always learn and grow, that your abilities aren't fixed.
So you see challenges as opportunities.
Exactly. And setbacks, well, they become stepping stones to success.
So it's about how you frame things, right? Instead of seeing failure as the end, you see it as a chance to learn.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And that shift in mindset, that's what gives you the resilience to keep going, to bounce back from setbacks, to reach those goals even when it's tough.
Okay, so how do we actually cultivate a growth mindset?
Start with your self-talk. Instead of saying, I'm not good at this, try saying, I'm not good at this yet.
I love that. Just that one little word makes all the difference.
It really does. And make sure to celebrate your effort and the progress you make, no matter how small. Focus on what you learn from those mistakes and use those lessons to move forward.
It's about the journey, not just the destination. This has been such an inspiring conversation about grit. I feel like I have a much deeper understanding of its power and how to develop it in my own life.
I'm so glad. And I hope everyone listening feels the same way.
Before we go, we want to leave you with one final question to think about. How has the concept of grit shown up in your own life? What are those moments where you've shown grit? And where could you maybe use a little more of it? Most importantly, how can you use these principles we've talked about to reach your goals and make a real impact on the world?
Remember, grit isn't just about achieving success. It's about embracing the whole journey, pushing through those challenges, and becoming the best versions of ourselves.
Thank you for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.